What's up, Can Crushers? Welcome to our first episode of the UFC Fight Night post-weigh-in breakdowns.
Yeah, man.
We have some updates for you guys coming up here with a few fighters being pulled from the card. You want to go into that, Jake?
So with this fight card, there's been a lot of updates over the past couple of weeks. Originally, the main event was supposed to be Holly Holm versus Irina Aldana.
Mm-hmm.
That one ended up getting scrapped due to Aldana testing positive for COVID-19. That changed things up, so that way we had to move the Shahbazyan versus Brunson fight up to the main event.
Right.
The other thing that happened there, Jennifer Maia's opponent actually backed out a couple weeks ago too. And then you had Joanne Calderwood step up on late notice.
Yep.
She came in, she replaced her. She's taken on the co-main event. So you have a new main event and co-main event all within the last couple of weeks here. So those are the first couple of changes that we had to the card. On the undercard, though, there was a lot of other changes. Chris Gutierrez was supposed to fight Luke Sanders. That ended up getting changed. But this morning, we had several different changes.
We had a lot of shuffling all within a couple hours this morning.
Yeah, let's talk about
right before and then I think even during the weigh-in.
So this was kind of crazy. Let's talk about the biggest one. I would say what would be probably the biggest one for the card right now, and that's going to be the Marcus Perez versus Eric Spicely card. Eric Spicely and Marcus Perez were scheduled to fight at 185 pounds. Eric Spicely was having some troubles or something like that.
Yeah, he posted on Twitter that he had a bad weight cut.
Yeah.
So he had some really bad problems with it, and that he just wasn't able to do it.
Yeah, he's on some medication apparently, and this medication was making it hard for him to make weight, for him to do his weight cut apparently. That's what they were saying on the MMA Fighting live stream. This is the update that they've gotten. So then they pulled in Charlie Ontiveros, and this was a last-minute thing. Like, I think that they were trying to make this match this morning. This was going to be a catch-weight fight at 195 pounds, which was kind of interesting because Ontiveros is like 170 pounds.
He's a welterweight.
When we were looking it up. But then the drama continues with that fight. What happened there?
Well, he never got a weigh-in.
Yeah.
So it was really weird. I mean, we waited and waited and waited, and then eventually the commission pulled the scale.
Yeah, they pulled the scale.
We're not too sure what exactly happened with that, but the bout was canceled.
Yeah, the bout was canceled. We're assuming it's a commission thing. We're assuming that the commission kind of said no on that, just because it was the last minute. The fact that he's bumping up from 170 to 195, maybe there was no coronavirus testing or something like that, like they've been doing with the other people. I don't know. There's a lot of assumptions we're throwing out there, trying to figure out why that fight wasn't possible to make happen today. So Marcus Perez, he will not be fighting tonight. Eric Spicely pulled out. Marcus Perez's replacement wasn't cleared by commission, so he wasn't cleared by commission. That's probably the biggest change to the card right now. That changes our card down from an 11 fight card down to a 10 fight card. Mm-hmm. And then we had a couple of other changes. Jamal Emmers was scheduled to fight Timur Valiev at 145 pounds. For whatever reason, Timur had to pull out of the card as well.
Yeah.
So they were able to find a replacement for him, and that one, that was Vincent Cachero.
Yeah, Vincent Cachero. When I woke up this morning, it's just really weird because I woke up this morning, I look at my phone, first thing I notice is I've got Timur Valiev is out of the fight.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck? And then, like, just a few minutes later, boom, all of a sudden we got another fighter out, and then another fighter out. And I'm just like, holy cow, what is going on with this card, man?
It was just
card
crazy.
Is cursed.
It was crazy. A lot of changes back to back, back to back, back to back. It was just nuts watching it happen over and over again and just seeing different names pop up. So those guys both did weigh in. Jamal Emmers weighed in at 146 pounds, and Vincent Cachero, he weighed in at 145 pounds. Mm-hmm. So that fight is still on. That's the new fight right there. That's Jamal's new opponent. So that one happened, and then we go down to the next one. I was really excited about this fight, Ray Borg versus Nathan Maness.
Yeah, it was going to be a fun fight for sure.
This was an exciting fight. Super excited about it. Unfortunately, Ray Borg had to pull out of the card. So he will no longer be fighting. I'm not sure what the reason is on that one. With everything being so last minute, we don't know.
Yeah, a lot of undisclosed reasons so far.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to see, but things are happening. They're happening fast, and the UFC is making changes and adapting. So who they pulled in was undefeated prospect Johnny Munoz Jr. He's he's replacing him. And this fight was actually supposed to be at 135 pounds, and it is now at 145 pounds. So it's bumped up a weight class. The weight class did change on that. I think that has to do with the fact that Munoz is just coming in on such last minute. They didn't want to make him cut the weight, or maybe he couldn't cut the weight.
I mean, you're talking like a 24-hour notice, essentially.
Yeah.
You're getting replaced right before weigh-ins. I mean, it's pretty much impossible to cut weight in that amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to do it safely and be able to possibly rehydrate and perform to the best of your ability.
Right.
It's very difficult. But, so those are our major changes for the card. Real quick, though, let's jump into the rest of the fighters and see how everybody else weighed in. So then you go to Chris Gutierrez versus Cody Durden. That's the opening fight of the night at 135 pounds. Gutierrez weighed in at 135.5 pounds, and so did Durden. So they both weighed in. They both made it. They're good to go. Jamal Emmers versus Vincent Cachero. Vincent Cachero, he made weight at 145 pounds. He's the replacement, and Jamal Emmers is at 146 pounds. We talked about Nathan Munoz. They both weighed in for the 145-pound weight class. Johnny Munoz was 145.5, and Nathan Munoz was 144 pounds.
All right, so moving on, we've got Ed Herman versus Gerald Muirshart. Both fighters weighed in. They made weight. Muirshart, I think, was 204.5, and Ed Herman came in at 206.
Yeah.
Jesus
so
Christ.
Ed was one of the last guys to weigh in, too. I think he was probably like the fourth or fifth last guy to weigh in.
Yeah.
So it took him a little bit longer to weigh in, but he looked pretty much like Ed looks every time he steps on the scale.
Yeah. Ed Herman's a professional. He's going to make his weight.
He's going to make it.
Speaking of making weight, we did have one fighter that actually missed weight on this card.
Yeah, and that's the next one we're getting ready to talk about, actually.
Right. So moving on to the next one, we did have one fighter that missed weight, Jonathan Martinez. So this bout was Frankie Saenz versus Jonathan Martinez, and it was at the 135-pound weight limit. Frankie Saenz made weight at 136. He had that 1 pound allowance.
Yep.
And Martinez ended up weighing in at 140.5.
Yep.
4.5 pounds over the limit. So Saenz will get 20% of Martinez's purse.
Yeah, he'll get 20% of his purse. And I think that, Saenz probably had the opportunity to say, I don't want to make 135, but he chose to do it. He was another one of the fighters that weighed in later on the card. So I have a feeling that he decided that he's going to continue to make the weight that he was contracted to do. Mm-hmm. That way, he also gets that little bit of a bonus.
You get the money.
For those people who picked Martinez as your pick, like we did, or like I did, I don't remember who
I had
picked.
Saenz, baby, and I'm sticking with it.
It makes me a little bit nervous. I mean, I'm sticking with mine right now. My picks are locked in from our last Pick'em show, but it makes me a little bit nervous. You have a guy that misses weight by 4.5 pounds. That's not a good weight cut.
No.
How is he supposed to come in and perform to the best of his ability?
Could be that. It could be a couple different things. We saw in recent years where fighters were actually missing weight and just winning all of the fights. I think it was crazy. I think it was like 2017, 2018, something like that. There were fighters, they were like 10-1 or something on this weird streak where fighters that missed weight were just winning decisively. But over the last 10 fights, I actually looked this up. Fighters that have missed weight have gone 2-8. Getting finished in 6-7 of those bouts.
Yeah.
Or no, 6 of those bouts with 2 of them being decisions.
I think it just goes to further prove how important it is to have a good weight cut or to be in the proper weight class.
Yeah, fighters that the 2 fighters that actually won during the last 10 fights, one of them we just recently saw. He fought Jai Herbert, Francisco Trinaldo.
Yep.
So he has one of the wins.
But he was losing that fight.
Oh yeah, he was losing that fight till he got knocked out.
Until he knocked out Jai Herbert. Yeah.
Losing that fight.
He made him stiff.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a nasty
and that one actually I think caused a little bit of controversy too, because
well, that was because they didn't stop the fight.
He didn't stop the fight.
Herb Dean didn't stop it right away.
Herb Dean and
he should. It was a big mistake on Herb Dean's fault, and
it was the second one on the night where Herb was a little late stopping it, and
it wasn't the first. So back on the Frankie Saenz Jonathan Martinez one, we were talking about that stat you were talking there.
Yeah, 2-8 in their last 10 fights. Fighters that have missed weight. So. Does that change how you feel about this fight a little bit?
I mean, it definitely changes how. And given the fact that it's such a large margin that he missed by, given the fact that it's such a large margin that he missed by, it tells me that it's been a bad cut. It wasn't just an accident. It wasn't just a scale being off here or there. It tells me that your body didn't adjust well to the weight cut that you were doing, and you're probably going to be suffering a little bit because of it when you start to recover and going into the fight tomorrow night. So it definitely changes it. Makes me nervous about my Martinez pick. But you know what? It is what it is, right? So then we move on to the next one. This one's at 185 pounds. This one was Kevin Holland versus Trayvon Giles. Both guys made weight. Kevin Holland weighing in at 184 pounds and Trayvon Giles weighing in at 185 pounds. And then the fight right after that one is Bobby Green versus Lando Veneta at 155 pounds. So this one's the rematch.
Yep.
I'm really excited about this. We talked about this in our pre-fight breakdown show. Last time they fought to a draw. Veneta was winning, but he threw an illegal knee in the first round. That cost him a point. At the end of the match, came down to it being a draw because of that point.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was a good, exciting fight. Super excited about that one. Both guys made weight. Bobby Green weighing in at 156 pounds, and then Lando Veneta weighing at 155.5 pounds.
Yeah, man. Moving to the next one, you know, Vicente Luque versus Randy Brown. 170-pound weight limit.
Yep.
Both fighters made weight here. Both fighters actually came in at 170.5. And for me, this is exciting because this was my fight of the night pick.
This was your fight of the night pick.
I'm glad that this fight wasn't affected.
And they honestly, I don't think that either guy looked too bad on the scale.
No, they both look pretty solid.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's gonna be good.
I think they'll be ready. They'll be in shape, and they'll be good to go. So the next one, this one was the last minute replacement. Obviously, not as last minute as what we've seen from a couple of the other fights today. Joanne Calderwood coming in a couple weeks' notice to fight Jennifer Maia at 125 pounds. Both girls make weight. Joanne Calderwood makes the limit 126, and then Jennifer Maia is actually a little bit under. She weighs 124.5 at the weigh-ins. I'm curious to see if there's going to be some size difference that you're going to notice. I typically think, looking at them, that Jennifer Maia is a little bit thicker. She's shorter. Joanne Calderwood's taller. We'll see how those differences play out in the fight there. But both girls make weight. Our co-main event is on.
So moving on to the main event, we've got a 185-pound weight limit versus Derek Brunson versus Edmund Shahbazyan.
Yeah.
Super excited for this one. Shahbazyan, you know, he's the wily prospect that's coming up.
Yeah.
Looking like he's the next real deal at 185 pounds.
Finished 4 of his last 5 fights in the UFC. Finished 9 of his wins overall.
Yeah, Ronda Rousey protege. He looks good, man. And they both made weight. Brunson weighed in, I think, at 186 pounds. Shahbazyan weighed in at 185.5.
Yep.
So,
So they're both on, ready to go. It's going to be a great fight. I mean, if you look at our picks, I think we both have this one predicted to be a pretty fast fight.
Yeah.
So don't blink. Be ready to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a quick one. This fight has potential for so many different things. Because Brunson is a veteran, and he's been in with some of the who's who of the 185-pounders, guys that have dropped down from 205, and he's knocked them out. Some way good strikers like Lota Machida, you know.
Yeah,
but he's also been knocked out a few times by some other dudes. So
then you also have to think about this new breed
of fighters. They're different.
Yeah, they're on another level right now, and you know it's weird to say because then we also have some guys like you look at those Russians, the Dagestani, the Chechnyan fighters out there where it's like the stuff that they're doing isn't super evolved, but they're so good at it.
They're just better at it.
And then with Shahbazyan, I mean, it's like the stuff that he's doing, some of it's pretty tricky and some of it's pretty basic, but he's just so good at it. So good at it. Yeah, I'm like super excited.
I think a lot of it is you know, I think in the 90s and stuff coming up, a lot of these guys were all specialists.
Yep.
They trained in one art and then they moved on. But then you get into the 2000s, people are having kids, and their kids are going into MMA.
Well, I mean, and you also have to think about the step in between there, right? Mm-hmm. So they went from just being specialists to the point where people were like, okay, I need to start cross-training.
Right.
And then they start going to wrestling gyms, they start going to kickboxing gyms and jiu-jitsu gyms, and you have guys traveling all over town to try to get the different specific skills that they want.
Yep.
And even then, like, you still have a lot of guys that were spending several years training only one style and then adding the other stuff later on. And then now we're in a day and age where there's a bunch of different. Okay.
Yeah, now we got these kids coming up, and these kids are growing up in a time where gyms are combined into one.
They have everything, right?
You need kickboxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. It's all there.
And then the classes are designed in a way, oftentimes, that they incorporate all those skills at one time. Right, so they may have a wrestling class, and they may have a jiu-jitsu class, and a boxing class, or a kickboxing class, but they also have actual MMA classes oftentimes where they get to combine all those different skills together, and they get to do it from an early age.
Well, they even have
working their way up.
Yeah, and not even, to add on to that, they actually have, children's MMA matches now. So these kids are getting the experience at a super young age.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it in some extents with limited rules, or not with limited rules, with more rules.
Yeah, more rules, and you got to have, kind of like amateur boxing, you got to have the headgear, certain things like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if they were doing something similar to like the Hapkido fights that I had done with no face shots, I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
I did some fights where where it was MMA, but there was no face shots basically. And if kids did some stuff like that, I would be okay with something like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about this card. I'm super excited about the future of the sport. I'm having fun watching the evolution and watching the new breed come up in Edmund Shahbazyan, who's trying to be one of the younger champs ever. I mean,
22 years old right now.
He's awesome. It's going to be fun to watch. If he keeps going, he could potentially be.
Yeah, man.
But that's our fight card right there. That's UFC Fight Night Apex Shahbazyan versus Brunson, man.